of course, is about the state of the HBCU, historically Black colleges and universities. And now there have been a number of conversations about the state of HBCUs, from facilities management to leadership. And now here's a little good news. HBCUs have reported that they are actually seeing a higher number of applicants coming through their doors. And this is huge, folks. This is a huge boost for HBCUs around the country as they're seeing this situation. Let me just share with you where we are with the HBCU situation in terms of these applications. And this is coming from where the Root had made this, had done this report. HBCU saw the applicants pool grow by upwards of 30% after 2020. Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia saw a 60% jump in applicants in 2020, according to an aggregated data from Date USA. Spelman College, also in Atlanta, received about 4,000 applications in 2014, but in 2021, the HBCU for women had 11,000 applicants. So we're seeing these numbers increase, and it's bringing a lot of attention to HBCUs. But the question is, once students get there, what should they expect? I'm going to bring my brother Michael Imhotep, who is the host of the African History Network podcast show. He's also a scholar and researcher, and you could also hear him on Roland Martin Unfiltered. But my brother Michael, thank you so much, brother, for joining us on this presidential Monday. And you're looking quite presidential yourself, sir.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Farajii. Yes,
George. Hey, brother Michael, let's talk about this because HBCU's been taking some hits over these past few weeks. You know it. You've been talking about it. But this is a little bit of a bright news. The applications have actually gone up. But I'm wondering, you know, they're looking at from the 2020 standpoint, right? Which is fine because that's when George Floyd. I feel like, brother Michael, that's we might as well say post 2020 because that had become a milestone in a lot of ways. But I'm wondering, how do we celebrate this first and foremost? How do we get excited about the fact that you got more Black students and you got more students of various ethnicities and backgrounds who want to come to HBCUs here in America?
I think one way to do that is to find out from them why they wanted to go to a HBCU. Is it because they've been elevated? The article from the Griot talked about how the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris graduated from Howard University is focusing more attention on HBCUs. But also we have to understand that in 2021, under the Biden-Harris administration, HBCUs got a record amount of funding. They got $5.8 billion in funding, funding from the White House annual budget, funding from the American Rescue Plan, and other dollars as well. So they got $5.8 billion. That's the most they've ever gotten in a single year. That was under the Biden-Harris administration. For some reason, that does not get talked about a lot. And I would encourage people to read the fact sheet from at whitehouse.gov. And I'm going to post it here in the chat for people to check out because proper documentation ends all conversation. The Biden-Harris administration's historic investments and support for historically Black colleges and universities. And they go through and break down where the $5.8 billion came from. 3.7 billion of that 5.8 came from the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that no Republicans in the House and the Senate voted for. So this is an example of how elections have consequences. And you scroll down, there's the information. I don't deal with debating with people. I deal with facts and evidence. You scroll down and it shows you the information. Scroll down. Yep. So, and you can zoom in and it shows you the breakdown of where that $5.8 billion came from. Debt relief. The Department of Education discharged approximately $1.6 billion of debt from loans provided to HBCUs for capital improvements through the department's HBCU capital financing program. Then grant funding, $500 million in grant funding in July, August 2021. So a lot of this does not get covered in mainstream media. This is why the Black Star Media Network and your show is so important, Farajii.
No, I appreciate that, and again, I just wanted for those who always want to do their own research, they can just go to whitehouse.gov to get this information. Correct?
Yeah, the official website of the White House. The White House. Yeah, absolutely. Not only that, you can read this document right here, which is about 26 pages, and it shows how the policies of the Biden-Harris administration are positively benefiting African Americans. The Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. It was last updated November 6, 2022. I've been watching it through all of its revising as more and more policies are passed and more and more policies are put into effect. So this is, the evidence is there. Unfortunately, a lot of our people don't read or don't know where to go to get the evidence.
Right. So let's talk about, the fact that when we talk about this HBCU, increase in application, like what would the experience be for a Black student or even from a student that's from across the waters? I've seen, Arab students. I've seen, from whether they come from Saudi Arabia, Palestine, Israel. I've seen students, Africa. There are a lot of international students that flock to HBCUs as well. So let's talk about the experience there. I mean, do you feel like HBCUs are equipped and ready and have the capacity to handle this influx?
It depends upon the HBCU. Different schools have different funding, different levels of funding. It depends upon the school. Now, as far as the experience, I'm somebody that went to PWI. I graduated from Wayne State University here in Detroit. I have traveled to and have visited Howard University a few times. So in talking to people who went to HBCUs, who graduated from HBCUs, some of my frat brothers, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, or some of my sorors, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, etc., they get a sense of belonging. They get a sense of togetherness. They get a sense of understanding their history and culture, things of this nature. Now, these are the general sentiments that you will get from different people. Now, you do have HBCUs are not a panacea. Okay, they're not perfect by any means. You do have mismanagement of funds in HBCUs. There are approximately about 102, 103 historically Black colleges and universities. You do have issues when it comes to housing, and some of the colleges we just heard recently dealing with issues with mold and things like that. I don't want to extrapolate that over all 103 HBCUs. Okay, but you're going to get a sense of tradition, history, a sense of pride when it comes to African Americans. And then also HBCUs generate up 50% or more when it comes to public African American public school teachers, scientists. For judges, it's about 80% of African American judges graduate from HBCUs, attorneys, doctors, things of this nature. So you're becoming part of a family of a deep, rich tradition in the African American community. Now, at the same time, alumni of HBCUs have to donate back to the school. You can't just show up to homecoming game, okay, and not contribute annually to your alma mater as well, because a lot of these schools, they have a problem when it comes to alumni funding. And then when they go to corporations, when they go to foundations, and they're trying to get additional funding for the school, one of the first things they ask is, okay, how much of your funding comes from your alumni? What percentage of your funding comes from alumni? And when it's extremely low, it causes them to ask, well, why should we, donate when your own people who graduated from your school don't donate? So, right. But this could be something very positive. I think this could be something very positive. It depends upon how we utilize it.
And I'm glad that you made that point, because I feel like when we do hear about the good things that are happening with HBCUs, it's very little, right?
Exactly.
There are a couple of things that I think that,
or it could be, or the stuff we could hear, it could be blatantly false and pushed out by BS media and BS Black media. It could be blatantly false.
Very true. That is very true. So I think that speaks to where we are right now. Like, I still feel like, Brother Michael, that HBCUs, unfortunately, the narrative behind HBCUs is rooted in history and not rooted in a sense of empowerment. Like, and the reason I'm saying that is because, you have people who look at the HBCU institution and it says, yes, it needs to be supported, but it's like more of charity instead of out of necessity. If we're producing Black teachers, Black scientists, Black engineers, right? If this is the place that is putting out Black professionals at a high level, right? And who are coming into these industries, making waves in these industries, then this should be a priority, not an afterthought.
Well, you know, HBCUs and HBCU funding has been there's been a difference, and some people have talked about this in the priority that it has with the Biden-Harris administration as opposed to the Obama administration, because Vice President Kamala Harris actually graduated from an HBCU, whereas President Barack Obama graduated from PWIs. So there's I think there is a greater sense of urgency, a greater focus on HBCUs under this administration, is largely to do with Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, I think when you talk about charity and things of this nature, I think that also we have to really value the legacy of HBCUs. It's just like Black History Month. A lot of our people still think that Black History Month was given to us by white people. No, that's Dr. Carter G. Woodson who created Negro History Week in 1926, coming out of an African-American organization called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. We created that. Okay. White people did not give us that. We did not ask permission from white people to have Negro History Week. Then in 1976, it gets expanded to a month, Black History Month. But we were already celebrating it for a month, like in Virginia or West Virginia. We were already celebrating it for a month. And it was never designed to be the only time of the year we study our history. It was a cultural celebration of our history and accomplishments and achievements that we contributed to this country, but also globally as well, especially on the continent of Africa. So just as we diminish Black History Month, which we created, we oftentimes do the same things with HBCUs. And there's a different history somewhat with HBCUs having been financed by Europeans and, different things like that. But it's a deep, rich history that we really need to understand and cherish and build upon for the future.
Absolutely. We got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversation about HBCUs, their increase in applications, and so much more. Folks, I want you to join us in the discussion. Share your thoughts. Post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, Black Star Network. And stay tuned, as we're also streaming on Amazon News right now. Stay tuned as we continue a conversation with Brother Michael Imhotep and you. So stay tuned. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about the increase in applications for historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, and what does that mean, especially as students from America and from around the globe are looking to take their talents and take their yearning for learning to HBCUs. Are HBCUs ready? Do they have the capacity? And most importantly, are they going to be able to provide the experiences that students need and want? We've been talking about this with Brother Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network podcast show, who is also a researcher and scholar around history. And of course, we want to hear from you. Post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Black Star Network, and of course, we're streaming now on Amazon News. Brother Michael, I wanted to kind of bring you back in because I wanted to get your take around this whole idea of funding. We often have this conversation about funding, but the one big thing is making sure that the narrative around HBCUs is not a narrative of pity, not a narrative of charity, or a narrative where HBCUs don't have any power. And the reason I bring that up is because I said the root earlier, I meant to say the griot, so my mistake.
Griot.
A couple of things. One is that one of our culture crew members made the point, truth is power. My guy, he said, I appreciate that, Michael, for all of the people that say Kamala Harris and Joe Biden aren't doing anything for Black people. Thank you for the facts. So
yeah, you're welcome.
That's definitely necessary. Misrespect 90 and truth is power. Thank you, bro. Misrespect 90 said, that's all facts, Michael. So many people don't realize Carter G. Woodson started this tradition of Black History Month. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, and just to that point, I've spoken at Black History Month celebrations where nobody mentioned Dr. Carter G. Woodson, or they did not mention the annual theme for Black History Month. This year's annual theme is Black Resistance. There's been an annual theme coming from ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History, since 1928. And they have a write-up on it each year at ASALH's website to give you guidance on how to celebrate this cultural celebration.
Hey, and you know what? We use that here on the show.
Yes.
I mean, when we started this show, when we started Black History Month, that was the source of our information. Yes. All right, so here's the thing. In the Griots piece, it said philanthropists such as Mackenzie Scott in 2020 donated over $550 million to almost 24 HBCUs nationwide, according to the Chronicle of Higher Education.
Right.
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation recently invested $100 million into HBCUs per USA Today. HBCUs are also seeing increased support from major global companies such as Apple, which has invested $130 million and counting into its racial equity and justice initiative, adding 45 HBCUs with resources for computer science and creative expression per the report. So we're seeing money being spent in HBCUs, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So one is, how do we make sure that the narrative doesn't get out of like, oh, okay, we're just doing this for the Blacks?
All right. Well, I think the way to do that is to show what the benefit is, what is the outcome, to talk about the sciences produced by HBCUs, the doctors, the lawyers, the judges, the engineers, the public school teachers, things of this nature. Talk about the professions. So this is the philanthropy is part of the input. You have government funding, then you have philanthropy. You also have it from African-American entertainers or celebrities. Serena Williams and Michael B. Jordan collaborated in 2021 on a contest to award $1 million to an HBCU student with an outstanding business plan. We know Kevin Hart has donated $600,000 in scholarships to 18 qualifying HBCU students, etc. So that's the input. Show what the output is, show the graduation rates, show the professions that they go into and what you actually get from it. Okay. So it's important when you show the output and connect the output to the input, I think they'll start getting a lot more respect.
So there got to be a return on the investment.
Well, there is a return on an investment. The return on investment has to be highlighted.
Right.
The return on investment, just like you have articles talking about the philanthropy going to HBCUs, you have to have articles that highlight the output and the number of doctors and lawyers and engineers and scientists and how they're contributing to society as well that come from HBCUs. Show what the output is. So like what we see in the business world where companies put out their annual report, need to see that coming from the HBCU space, right? To put out its annual report. This is what we've done. This is the direction we're going into. This is where your money is how your money is being managed and handled. And I think that if we start to, and I mean, to me, those things are so important, Brother Michael, because it helps us to give a better context. Again, HBCUs are talking about it as a cultural space. It's talked about. I mean, it's something other than a place where you actually learn great skills. It becomes this other thing, and I don't know how to use the word to describe it. But even in our community, it's like, oh, I'm an HBCU, but it has prestige. It has for a lot of us. It has prestige. It's still something other than what I think, which is that this is a serious institution, or these institutions are truly churning out Black excellence at a very high level. Yeah. And I think one of the other things to highlight is that many African-American students will go to HBCUs, and it appears that more of them are choosing them as a first choice as opposed to a last result. Meaning they didn't go because nobody else would take them. No white institution would take them. So they go to the HBCU. For a lot of them, the HBCU is their first choice. Right. And that has to be talked about as well. So, I think they really have to do a whole marketing campaign to market HBCUs, why students today go and talk about the output and show African Americans in their professions, thriving, leading in their professions that are HBCU graduates also.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me just take a couple of comments from our crew because folks are checking in to talk about this. Chris Big, you said the wholesale waste, fraud, and loss of funding going to HBCUs need to be addressed before more funding is provided. What's your take on that, Brother Michael?
We don't put that same stipulation on white institutions. We don't say, oh, they should not get any more funding. We only do that to black institutions. As if all the white institutions, none of them have fraud. None of them have mismanagement of dollars. No, they all have it also. Okay. Now, if we want to say, hey, they need to be held accountable for the mismanagement of dollars, I agree with that. But don't hold HBCUs to a higher standard to get less money than the white institutions get. Don't do that.
Because what's the consequences of that? I mean, and there are serious consequences. And I'm saying not even just among us, but once again, that the consequences I would see, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong in this thinking, the consequences I would see is that it once again treats HBCUs like children instead of established institutions of
learning. And it gives white institutions a pass. It's just like, what was that? What white institution was that get caught with the cheating scandal? I think it was Duke. They got caught with the cheating scandal, and they were cheating. They were the wealthy white people's children were cheating on the tests to get into the school, or however it went. And the FBI had to investigate. That's how corrupt some white people are. The FBI had to get in and investigate the college scandal. You don't think there's mismanagement among white schools? See, we only say stuff like that about black schools. That's part of a self-hatred right there, just to be honest with you. He may not have meant it that way, but that's part of a self-hatred. No, hold them all to the same standard. Don't let white institutions off with all the corruption that they have, and then only put that, oh, they shouldn't get any more funding. They get less funding, and also from the state government. They'll get less funding in like in Florida. I mean, not Florida, Maryland. In Maryland, you've had HBCUs, if I remember correctly, you're there in Maryland, Farajii. They filed a lawsuit against the state. Yeah.
For years. That lawsuit.
For years. Yeah. But see, we only say stuff like that about black institutions because that's how we subconsciously think about them. We've been taught that we're lesser than. No, hold them all to the same standard. Go after those white institutions because their endowment is much more. They got much more money than the African-American institutions.
Chris responded saying, look, I compare HBCUs to Ivy League standard. Ivy League do so well with their funds. They don't need government money and offer free education.
Yeah, they don't offer, he said they don't need government money and offer free education. Well, look at how much they get in their endowments. Is because of the part of that has to do with the amount of money that the alumni give them. Part of that has to do with the amount of money that corporations give them.
Right.
So you have to look at the input, how much money that they're getting. Okay, they're getting exponentially more than HBCUs are getting. It's like if you look at there was one study that I saw, and it looked. I'm gonna see if I can pull this up. I don't know if we have a break coming up or not. But it was looking at the endowment of like Harvard University. It was looking at the endowment of Harvard University compared to the endowment of Howard University, or take your pick. Take your top HBCU. Okay, right. There's no comparison.
No comparison. I think the endowment for Harvard is in the billions. If I'm not
yeah, the university annual the annual operating expenses for Harvard is $5.4 billion, $670 million granted in financial aid and scholarship in 2022. The size of the Harvard University's endowment in 22 fiscal year, $50.9 billion. Now, this is off of Harvard's website. Okay. Once again, proper documentation ends all conversation. I just put the link there. Pull that up. $50.9 billion, $51 billion. Their endowment. You dealing with a whole nother league. We don't have HBCUs up in that type of league.
Hey, Brother Michael, that's like the Chitlin circuit versus mainstream.
That it truly is a different world. That's what you're dealing with. We can't conceive of stuff like that. Okay.
And I mean, look, and the crazy part is, I remember, I'll never forget when Dr. Carr was on the show months ago, we had him talking about Harvard, when Harvard had apologized, quote unquote, for their involvement with the transatlantic slave trade and how and how they gained as a result of that. And then Dr. Carr, he was the one that also brought it to the team. He said, look at their endowment. He said, look at just Harvard's endowment alone.
Exactly.
It was like $50 billion. And the fact that they're still raising money.
Mm-hmm.
They're still raising money. You can't spend that.
Right. They put together a fund for $100 million to address racial disparities and things like this. It's like, wait a second, how much money do you have? That's just a drop in the bucket, Harvard University. That's just $100 million sounds good, but hold on, that's just a drop in the bucket from the type of funding that you have.
Right. But see, here's the thing, we got to take another pause, but here's the other thing though. I want us to get beyond the money for HBCUs. Mm-hmm. I want us to have a conversation. Does the curriculum needs to be improved? Does the level of outreach in terms of making sure that there is a connectedness between community and students, does that need to be improved? There got to be other elements of the HBCU experience that we have to talk about, because I feel like it's just cultural, games, parades, and money. We're not talking about everything else. And we got to take a quick pause, but I want us to make sure that we look at that, because if those applications are coming in, then how do we make sure that those students who are attending these HBCUs get the best experience to be prepared for the uncertain future of America? We're going to have that conversation. Stay with us, folks. We still got a lot to talk about with Brother Michael Imhotep, and of course with you right here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the HBCUs, how a new report has shown that HBCU applications from students have actually gone up, in some cases from 30 to 60%. And we're talking about how HBCUs can really capitalize off of it, and how we can have some very, very different conversations about historically Black colleges and universities. Talking it over with my brother Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network podcast show. And of course, folks, I want to hear from you. Continue to post your comments as we have this discussion, crew, and we'll try to get to as many of your comments as possible. But Brother Michael, we talked about Harvard's endowment. Nearly, you broke down the numbers: $50.9 billion, roughly, about to say $51 billion with a B, $51 billion. This is just one Ivy League school called Harvard, not mentioning other Ivy schools. But here's the other part of it, that we have the conversation about the state of HBCUs only from two vantage points, which I often see. And this is among Black folks: money and talking about the cultural impact of HBCUs, the game day experience, the parades, and all of those things, the fraternities and sorority, which is all well and good. But I'm trying to make sure we can kind of shift the conversation a little bit more here, Brother Michael, making sure that when we talk about HBCUs, we're talking about the curriculum that is going to be empowering the next generation to be prepared for the uncertain future that this country is looking at right now, right? Like how do we make sure that we move the conversation into that space, bro?
Well, I think it's important to once again highlight the alumni and how they are leaders in their profession, how they're leaders in their fields as well. And also, African Americans really have to be educated on money, and educated to the fact that money is not a bad thing. Is how you utilize it. That can be either good or bad, because a lot of us were all over the place. You have some of us who are socialists. You have some of us who are capitalists, things like that. And then the socialists, they may look at money as being bad. And, John Hope Bryant of Project Hope, Operation Hope, he says, before you can distribute money like a socialist, you first have to collect money like a capitalist. Okay, so you a lot, and see, and socialism, that doesn't work for like large countries with a large population. That socialism only works for like small population countries. So a lot of this is just not really understanding money finances, understanding business, etc. Very quickly here, I posted the link here. Hopefully somebody can pull it up. HBCU endowments, because they compare the top 10 HBCU endowments to the top 10 PWI endowments. And it says they're looking at 2021 numbers. HBCU endowments were for the top 10 were $100 million, but compared to PWI endowments, it was like between $55 billion and $69 billion.
Jeez.
Okay, and they go through because highlights. They look at Howard University. That's at the top. $795,000 was their endowment. Spelman $530,000. Harvard's is $51 billion. Okay, this. You in a different world, man. Come on.
And there's Pee Wee League versus
That's Pee Wee League versus the majors, man. What are you talking about?
And see, that's what I'm saying, brother. Like at the end of the day, we acting like we really fighting over crumbs. We getting mad about little crumbs, man. You got people that own bakeries, quote unquote, for this analogy. You got bakeries that are being built in the likes of Harvard and Yale and some of these top Ivy League schools, and we're fighting over still trying to get the ingredients together, right? And this is why I'm saying that really we don't want to have, and I'm saying this country, we don't really want to have a pro-black centered curriculum and institution for higher learning. We don't really want this. And see, here's the great concern that I have, Brother Michael, that you have a company like Apple, you have a Mackenzie Scott, who I think done more probably for HBCUs than a lot of companies, because she just gave the money and just said, do whatever you want with it without any strings attached, right? Mm-hmm. The fact is, now we're now going to be challenged with companies in corporate America buying a school that teaches and trains Black youth on how to think, how to learn, and essentially how to engage in the world. So now we got to think about that as well. As much as we say we want more funding, okay, if you put this HBCU up on to be on a pedestal and look, hey guys, give it to us. Are we asking for our own demise because we want corporate America to buy an educational institution? And if they buy it, then what will be the product that comes from it?
Right. So I'm not necessarily saying a corporation should buy an HBCU.
No. I know you're not saying. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, you got these corporations, and I'm saying in the larger conversation, you know it and I know it, that people are like, well, if so and so invested in this person or this company or this group invested, but you know that each investment is a stake of the institution. Like, nobody's giving $100 million and be like, all right, cool, y'all do whatever.
They're looking for recruits. They're going to recruit from there as well. So, African Americans, we're going to go work in corporate America. That's going to happen because 95% of Black-owned businesses only have one employee. That's the owner. 80% of African American owned businesses go out of business in the first 18 months. And a lot of that had to do with the COVID-19 pandemic. And by April 2020, 41% of Black-owned businesses had shut down. So what I think is important to understand, and why it's important to have a cultural foundation, historical and cultural foundation, where you can go into these white corporations and work and bring resources back home to your community. Okay. Mm-hmm. But not bring a white mindset back to your community. This is one of the mistakes that was made when African Americans went to white business schools and learned white business principles and brought them back to the African American community and tried to implement them. And they may work for you and your family, but they didn't work for our communities, like the cooperative economic systems that we had, like the Colored Merchants Association in 1928, the Colored Farmers Union, the Free African Society, things like this, where the members were also owners, and is based upon a concept of sharing and everybody gaining together, everybody working together. The cooperatives, these are principles we brought with us from Africa. Okay, if you read,
so I'm glad, hey, bro, Mike, real quick, I want to get, because now you touching on something I think is very important,
right?
Which is now that the HBCU should it cater to our communal philosophy of from everything from business to health and wellness, or should it reflect the modern day American view of those things?
So as somebody that graduated from Wayne State University's business school, or PWI, I was taught white business principles. Okay. Right. My degrees in business administration with a major market. It was outside of that institution that I learned about cooperative economics from studying African history, African American history, things like this, and reading like Dr. Jessica Gordon Nemhard's book, Collective Courage, which documents our history of cooperative economics. So we're dealing with a dual reality. You're gonna go into those corporations, gain those resources, bring those resources back to your community, but also we need to embrace the co-ops much more so, because that was how we thrived. That was how we were able to survive economically, okay, right, and compete against white corporations and even during segregation. This is how in the early 1900s, a lot of African American owned grocery stores were able to compete against the Woolworths and the Kresge's because of the Colored Merchants Association, which came out of the National Negro Business League, founded by Booker T. Washington. Okay, so we have a whole history of engaging in economics, but we don't understand it. We've just been taught white capitalism, and that benefits white people and white corporations, but doesn't benefit the African American community as much as the history of cooperative economics does.
Something for us to consider. We got to take a final pause. When we come forward, we'll continue and we'll get some final thoughts about this conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Folks, welcome back to the show. We just want to get some final remarks from our brother Michael Imhotep, and certainly from you, as we have the conversation about the increasing number of applications for HBCUs. Brother Michael, you made the point of the philosophies that are taught in PWIs, especially in spaces of business and in business, for example, versus than what the students may get. So are you saying that HBCUs need to change their philosophy? Because if you go to a HBCU for business, whether it's business administration, business marketing, or anything relating to business, you're going to get a corporate America philosophy. But you're saying that at this point, maybe is it time for us to start switching that up, so to understand business in the communal understanding of how Black people do business. Am I understanding you correctly, brother? You on mute.
We're going to need both educations. How we did it historically, understanding that history of the co-ops in the late 1800s, early 1900s, understanding the mutual aid societies like the Free African Society, 1787, and then so we're going to have to be able to speak both languages, okay? But when you and one of the mistakes that's made when it comes to African American entrepreneurship is we think that we have to quit our day job to go start a business. Okay. And when I teach entrepreneurship, and I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years, I tell my students, don't quit your day job. And one of the things that you can do is you can partner with other people in a business. Because I worked for a company, African-American owned company, where they did this. You know, you had the three principal owners. They all had other jobs in their profession. And then they hire a manager, a general manager, to manage the company. Okay. And then the three principal owners, they're not just dependent upon that one business to feed their family. Okay. They have other sources of income coming in, so they can work together, and one person doesn't have all that load, all that responsibility on them. So I think we have to change how we look at this. And in these business schools, we're going to have to learn both. Some of them already teach, entrepreneurship, things like this. But we're going to have to teach the history of the co-ops as well. And if you look at the Colored Merchants Association, these were Black-owned grocery stores. So they are utilizing Black capitalism, but they're engaged in a cooperative, which is also operating based upon what people may call socialism. So within the cooperative, they have kind of like more a socialistic type of environment, but they also then engage in the overall capitalistic society as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the point that we're talking about having, and I think this is the benefit of having an HBCU. If HBCUs were to go down that road of offering those two different philosophies,
right,
man,
you're gonna have to understand both.
I don't want the HBCU to be black only by name.
Right. Oh, exactly. They have to teach.
It's like a shell company. It's like a shell institution for a white company. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, and I think that's it has to push the boundaries a lot more, man. Like, yes, I get it. Because corporate America has done this actually with all schools, white school, PWIs and HBCUs. They invest in schools so they can get their labor force, so they can get the future.
Yeah, they want to train their labor force.
I got you. I understand. Yep. But for HBCUs, there has to be somewhat of a different mission. And that's my ongoing concern, Brother Michael, as we close out. My ongoing concern is we are often trying to align ourselves. HBCUs are trying to align themselves with corporate America or with the politics of this country. And it's like, bro, y'all are institutions of higher learning. There should be a level of independence and autonomy where black folks or brown folks, white people, any student that comes to that institution will learn about black history, black struggle, black liberation, black understanding about everything from business to health and well-being to entertainment. Like, there has to be an ongoing black philosophy that runs through all of those things.
Yeah, but also that is true. But also, those students want to go to an institution that has a good track record of placing you in jobs that have something to do with the degree that you just spent $60,000 to get. Okay, so that's the other part. So I agree with what you said, but then the reality is you want to be able to get a job, whether it's at an African-American owned company or a predominantly white company. Most likely it's going to be a predominantly white company based upon the way things are today. So that you can get a job, so you can start paying back those student loans. You can start making $50,000-$60,000 a year or more. Okay. And then at the same time, while you work in that 9-to-5 job, you can build your business also. So you're going to have a balance of both of them. You're going to have to have you're going to have a balance of both of them.
That is absolutely true. Brother Michael, it's always a pleasure to connect with you on Mondays, folks. You can hear from Brother Michael and Imhotep here on Mondays on The Culture. Brother Michael, we got your website. Talk to us really quickly.
Yeah, the AfricanHistoryNetwork.com this Saturday, February 25th, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time is our last free Black History Month lecture. So visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and we'll have the updated information there. That's the one that I did on Sunday, and click on the link. You can watch that one if you missed it. And then also Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, which is my new 12-week online course that started up. The information is on the website as well. And if you we do the sessions live, all the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. So please support us.
There it is right there. Brother Michael Imhotep here on the Black Star Network. And, of course,
yes,
here on The Culture and the Roland Martin Unfiltered. Brother Michael, thank you, sir, for being so good for the culture.
All right, Farajii. Thanks, brother. Peace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks.
All right. Quick correction from my statement on Farajii Muhammad Show, The Culture. When I talked about Howard University, $795,000 a year in endowment, I was citing this study here from HBCU Money, HBCUmoney.com. This is from March 4th, 2022, HBCU Money's 2021 top 10 HBCU endowments. And I Googled this while we were live on the air, so I did not have a chance to read fully before we discussed this. But when we scroll down and we look right here, okay, Howard University, $795,203. It should be now right above this. It says all values are in millions. All values are in millions. So it should be 795 million. 795 million is as opposed to 795,000. Okay, and what this does is the what we see listed here: Howard, Spelman, Hampton, Morehouse, Meharry, Medical College, North Carolina A&T, Florida A&M State University, Tennessee State University, the University of Virgin Islands. These are the HBCUs with the top 10 endowments. Okay, so if we look right here, top 10 HBCU endowment total $2.7 billion. Now, ours is still much less than a lot of white institutions and Ivy League institutions, but the general premise, the general principle is still valid. Okay, the top 10 HBCU endowments is a total of $2.7 billion, and this was for 2021. Okay, the year 2021. Now, if we compare this to Harvard University, and if we flip over here to Harvard's website, harvard.edu. So let's look at Harvard University and see what they got for 1 year in their endowment. Okay, so this is at harvard.edu/about/endowment. Supporting our mission, you scroll down and we see here $50.9 billion, as I said on Farajii's show. $50.9 billion that was the size of Harvard University's endowment in the 2022 fiscal year. So for HBCUs, the top 10 HBCUs got a total of $2.7 billion in endowments in one fiscal year. For Harvard University, they got almost 25 times that, $50.9 billion, okay, in 1 year. It's a totally different universe. It really is a different world, okay? So the premise that I was making is still valid, but I wanted to correct the numbers. So hopefully this gives some clarification. Hotep, everybody. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network and host of the African History Network show. Some of you all saw me on Farajii Muhammad's show, The Culture, on Monday, February 27th, and we talked about Scott Adams, creator of the Dilbert comic strip, who is losing newspapers that carry his comic strip because of a racist tirade that he went on. And at the end of the show, I talked about 2 online courses that I teach on the weekend, 2 online history courses. So on Saturdays, I teach a 12-week online course called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this class just started up Saturday, March 4th, 2023. We have class number 3, and I teach this class 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, and you'll never look at history the same way. When we study the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start studying our history in slavery. Even when we deal with the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study, we can't start in 1619 or in the 1440s when the Portuguese get involved. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who enter into the Iberian Peninsula today known as Spain and Portugal from North Africa in 711 AD, and they take the teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, into Europe. Now, and these teachings are going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. Now, this course not only deals with the transatlantic slave trade, but it also deals with thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. August 20th, 2019 marked the 400th year anniversary of the 20 and odd Africans who came into Point Comfort on August 20th, 1619 on that White Lion pirate ship in what would later become called the colony of Virginia. Now, this year 2019 was known as the year of return, as many African Americans were and continue to reconnect to Africa and traveling to Ghana and other West African countries, the original people of North, Central, and South America. Okay. So this year was known as the year of return, 2019, as many African Americans were and continue to reconnect to Africa and traveling to Ghana and other West African countries. When we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America and have been in the land we call the United States of America at least 51,700 years. And one of the sources that we use in the class is Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Now, you don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class, but we use them for reference. So there's about 70, 80 articles that we reference as well. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. And we have the information right on the homepage of the website. 12-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So this class is on sale, $80 right now. Our next class is Saturday, March 4th, 2023, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click right here to register for the full course. So I do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. Even after the 12-line course is over with, you can go back and watch the entire course as much as you want to. You'll have full access. All right. And then we also have a bundle pack where you get both classes that I teach on sale for $120. That's a $300 value. There will be 5 of my lectures that will be in the video library when you log into your account, and you'll be able to watch 5 of my lectures as a free bonus as well. Now, the second class that I teach deals with history from 1800 to 1968. And this is Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution to the Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. So I teach this class on Sundays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our next class is Sunday, March 5th, 2023. And with this course here, we study in depth this 168, 170 year period of history. Okay, this is a 12-week online course as well. Same structure as the first class. Click right here to register here. And we have to understand that history leading up to the Civil War, what led up to the Civil War taking place, but then also understand what happened after slavery ended as well. Okay, and this helps us understand how we got to where we are today. What were the laws and policies? That were put in place to put us in the predicament that we're in today as African Americans, to understand where we need to go from here. Okay, so in the aftermath of the insurrection on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol, many leading historians drew parallels between the violence that we saw January 6, 2021 and the Reconstruction era, which is 1865 to 1877. And this is the period after the Civil War ended in 1865. This was a period of political revolution directly following the American Civil War. Now, this 12-week online course will analyze U.S. history primarily from the African American perspective, beginning in the period 1800 to 1856, leading up to the end of the Civil War. okay, in 1800 to 1865 as well, and the 13th Amendment. We'll look at the Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877, the Red Summer of 1919, the Jim Crow era, World War One, the Great Migration, 1915 to 1970, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power movement. To better understand where we need to go from here and the laws and policies that need to be put in place, but you have to understand how you got to where you are today. The laws and policies that have now distributed wealth, power, and resources into the hands of Europeans, and we have to understand the lasting legacy of slavery as well. Now, it's important to understand this chronology of history to get a better understanding of how we got to where we are now, to understand where we go from here. Unfortunately, some of this history is repeating itself. Okay, unfortunately, some of this history is repeating itself. So this class, you can register for it now. As soon as you register, you can watch the class number 1 that we just had. That's that. All right. Now, there's a good article from time.com that we reference in the class as well. There's a good article from Time Magazine, time.com. And this article is a new report finds that 45 states are to students. A new report finds that 45 states are failing to teach students about the period that shaped race relations after the Civil War. And they're talking about the Reconstruction era. Okay, the Reconstruction era. And if we look briefly here at this article, it says scholars say studying the aftermath of the Civil War help context many of the most seminal events in the U.S. in recent years, from the brutal murder of George Floyd by police to the voter suppression laws enacted after Black voters played a big role in helping Joe Biden and Kamala Harris be elected president and vice president in 2020. But despite the timeliness of the era in today's climate, many students in American schools will not get a full education on Reconstruction until they go to college. Okay, many students in American school will not get a full education on Reconstruction until they go to college. Now the problem is most of them are not going to go to college, or a good portion of them are not going to go to college. All right, so that's why the content of this course is so important. And your understanding of politics is directly related to your understanding of history. And politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. So coming out of this course, you'll have a much better understanding of how we got to where we are today, the laws and policies put in place, the laws and policies that need to be put in place to take us to where we need to go. Okay, so this is understanding where we go from here. All right, so visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. We have the information around the homepage of the website. Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, the Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Black Power movement. So we start in 1800. We look at the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 and the Haitian Revolution as well, 1791 to 1803, because those two events are related. And then we go through history chronologically, and we look at things like the Missouri Compromise of 1820, Texas winning its independence in 1836 from Mexico, Mexico winning its independence in 1821 from Spain, the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which ends the Mexican-American War. And the U.S., as a result of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, is going to get the territory that makes up California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. They're going to get all that from Mexico. Mexico loses about a third of their territory. We look at the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, and we look at why the Civil War starts April 12, 1861. Then we go through and analyze the U.S. Civil War, Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863, which did not free the enslaved Africans. Ratification of the 13th Amendment, December 6, 1865. Reconstruction era, 1865-1877. Compromise of 1877, which ends Reconstruction, and Rutherford B. Hayes becomes president. And the Republicans make a backroom deal with the Democrats that if they let Rutherford B. Hayes become president, he'll remove the remaining Union troops out of the South from Florida and South Carolina, etc. And then you have the Jim Crow era, where the white supremacists are taking back control of all levels of government in the southern states. You have, so we studied the Jim Crow era, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, U.S. Supreme Court case, Mississippi State Convention of 1890, where they rewrite the state constitution and impose poll taxes and literacy tests in a state that had a majority African-American population, and the majority of the voters were African-American as well. So you go through this period where you see these southern states, these former Confederate states, rewriting their state constitutions. South Carolina, 1895, Mississippi, 1890, poll taxes being imposed in Florida in 1889. So we go through the Jim Crow era, Great Migration, 1915, 1970, 6 million African Americans migrating from the South up north and out west. World War I, 1914, 1918, World War II, 1939, 1945, Civil Rights Movement and Black Power Movement. Okay, to understand what happened to us after slavery ended and what leads up to the Civil War taking place, so we can understand how we got here today and understand history, law, politics, and economics, to understand where we go from here. So Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution to the U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay, so you register for that class right now at theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. That's on sale, $80 as well. And we have the bundle pack where you get both classes for $120. For both classes, this information is PG-13, I would say, so you can use this with your children as well. And also to support the African History Network, you can support us, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. And we have it right on the homepage of our website as well. This helps us to keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, finance the African History Network show, pay some of the bills, etc. Okay, so we have a PayPal and Cash App information there also. All right, so hope to see you in class. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Remember, right now, also for returning students, those who have paid for one of my online courses in the past, you get a 50% discount. Returning students, you get a 50% discount on our bundle pack. So email me at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com. All right, and we'll get you taken care of. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever.